I'm Jes.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Beyond the Shelves. Hello. Welcome back to Beyond the Shelves. Today, we have a special guest on the podcast. We are going to be talking to Kathleen, who is an info service librarian at the Central Library. We are going to talk about library things. I'm pretty excited because it's a really cool thing we do at the library that some people know about, but I don't think everyone knows about. So that is our episode. We're going to just hit the ground running. Sarah, what are you reading?
I am reading... basically just I realized like Bookstagram and like book threads things. Didn't mean to, but here we are.
It happens.
So the first one is The Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, which is the second in the Shepherd King series. So it's like gothic, it's fantasy, it's romancy, it's everything I love in a book. And I borrowed it from a friend because I couldn't wait for it any longer. I'm listening to The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer, which I believe, but it's been so long, is a play on The Westing Game.
I believe so.
Okay. I had to like relook up the plot. I was like, I've read The Westing Game, but it's been like 25 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Long time. So I'm listening to that. And I just finished reading Icebreaker by Hannah Grace because it was a hot title, No Hold, on Libby. So I listened to it. And that book is all vibes, no plot. Like, I'm not mad about it, but...
I was excited to hear your thoughts because I saw your Goodreads review. I'm not going to lie. I was like, ooh. And my sister had the same review and the same thing. So I was like, oh, interesting. Because it is a super popular book.
It could, like, cut 50 pages and add 50 pages in a different way, and I think it'd be a much better book.
I think I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. But then I'm getting too into it. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, man.
Jess, what are you reading?
So I am reading a book called Brat, which is LOL, Brat Girl Summer. That is definitely not what it is about. It is called Brat by Gabriel Smith. It is a horror novel, I would say. It's about a man who is not doing well, goes back to his childhood home after his father has passed away, and bad haunted house things happen. So far, that's what I know. So his skin begins peeling off is all I'm going to say. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. It's really good, though, so far. I'm really interested. It's very short. It's almost, dare I say, Patterson-esque, because it's got, like, short chapters.
Oh, okay.
Like the shortest chapters possible. Like 1.5 pages. Like it just
I'm kind of here for that.
It kind of breaks it up, and so I'm into it so far. And then I am listening to Bad Habit by Alana Potero. She is a trans woman and writes about growing up as a trans woman in Spain in the 80s. So there's lots of really interesting things there. I love the nostalgia. I love like the tiny bit of like political history and like social history. It's really felt and it's really good so far. I'm not quite done with it. But I did also just finish rereading My Brilliant Friend, which is funny, which is by Elena Ferrante, because I started rereading it before the New York Times
Such a hipster.
Best book of the 21st century came out. Well, why did I reread it? A, it was available on Libby, number one. B, I was like, what? I remember I gave the book 3 stars when I first read it. Okay. And I was like, what is it? What is it about this book? What is it? Do I like it more?
Yeah.
Do I like it less? Like, why does everyone love it so much? And I did bump it up a star rating.
I was just going to ask you.
It went up to 4 stars. And if I remember correctly, the second book is way better. So I'm kind of excited to I'm going to keep going because I read the first 3, I think, originally, then gave up. We'll see. Series or...
How many books? I think
there's 3 or 4.
You would know more than I.
I definitely...
Which is what I say to Jeff a lot. Honestly.
I have a... Series are a tough one for me. Even if I really like, I have not read the second... 4th Iron Flame.
No,
because I just like I read a book and I'm like I'm done.
Or I'm like on book 12 of the Future Bring series. We are very different readers.
Like series are just not my vibe. So anyways, that is what I'm reading. Kathleen, do you want to talk about what you are reading right now?
Yeah, I am mostly audiobook, mostly nonfiction. So I am about 5 hours into a 15-hour book called The Wars of the Roses by Dan Jones. And that is exactly what it sounds like. He also had a book called The Plantagenets, which was also exactly what it sounds like. And I really liked that one. So I was really excited to dig into this. So far, not a ton of new information. I was a history major in college. Yeah. But I am enjoying it. Yeah. The most recent fiction book I read that I really liked was The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. I read that
is a winner on this podcast.
As an ebook. And I'm actually really excited because I did it for a book club that I run. And I was talking with some other people, and they were saying that the audio version is actually really well done. Because there are little asides in the book, and they say that those sound like actual asides in the narration. So I'm very excited to dig into that, probably before book 2 comes out.
Yeah. I love the...
Why did I not know there was a book 2?
There's going to be a book 2.
Oh my gosh, I learned so much on this podcast. I mean, it set itself up to be more, but I did not know I learned so much.
I loved that audiobook. It was a great audiobook.
It's such a good audiobook.
So I think you'll enjoy it just as much. There are a few books that I will read and then love enough that I'll listen to, or listen to and then love enough that I'll read. And I just did that with Beautyland by Marie Bertin, and it was so good both ways. It's fun to enjoy a book in a different way, but still have all the feels for it.
Yes,
I love it. I love it. Sarah, you want to give Kathleen an official introduction?
I guess. If I must. No, I'm kidding. Kathleen is one of, like Jess pointed out earlier, our information services librarians here at Central, which means she gets to hang out with me all day, every day.
Every day.
Lucky her.
Lucky her. Unlike Jess, who just gets to see me once a month. But one of the main things that Kathleen does, one of her main roles here, is keeping track of the Library of Things, ordering, making sure they come back, reordering, and also finding out what people are going to want. And what they are going to check out and what's going to become popular and stuff like that, is on top of her many other duties of just being a librarian, like Jess and I. But I'm going to kick it off to Kathleen so she can explain her job a little bit more, how she got into this role, and rose to this position.
Yeah, I came to this role from a small town library, Van Meter, if you're familiar, just outside of Adel, Waukee area. And I took this job because the possibility of building a whole makerspace from scratch was really appealing to me. That's not entirely how it turned out. It was actually mostly decided before I got here. But I was told that I would be building it from scratch. But that is what has actually happened with the Library of Things, which I love so much. Not that Text Central is not wonderful, and you should definitely use it to make all of your holiday and birthday gifts this year. So I do a lot, like Sarah said, I do a lot with Text Central and the Library of Things. I do collections work, which I really enjoy a lot. I do 1 or 2 displays every month, so if you ever pick up a book off a display at Central, I might have been the one who put it there.
Or it might have been me.
Or it might have been Sarah. Or it might have been one of our other wonderful collections. There are quite a few of us because there are quite a few displays. And, I work all the desks. I help people with all their computer needs, and there are a lot of those too. So I do a lot of different things. But I do a lot, the most probably with the Library of Things and then Text Central as well.
Do you want to talk about or give the library? We say the Library of Things, which most people can infer what that is, but what exactly is the Library of Things?
It's non-traditional items to a library. So your traditional library items, you think of a library, you think books, movies, picture books, audiobooks, all of the standard things that you've always been able to check out from a library. A Library of Things is everything that's not that, which is really vague, but that's what it is. So we have all kinds of stuff in the Library of Things. For example, our 2 most popular items are our radon detector and our carpet cleaners, which are very different.
I feel like everyone knows the carpet cleaner because it just goes around from branch to branch, and you'll see someone wheeling it down to delivery, so makes its way back to the next person.
And how many carpet cleaners do we have now?
Oh, 5 or 6.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that our delivery van driver hates me.
You guys, I didn't know there were multiples. I love. See, I learned something. I didn't know there was more than one.
That's why you see them so often.
That makes sense.
We should
now.
name them.
We should.
We
should do that this afternoon.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And they do
The important work.
check out for 3 weeks at a time.
3 weeks. That is a relatively recent change. So if you had it a few months ago, it was 1 week, but now it's 3 because we bought some more.
Which is great. I love that. And Library Things is one of our few find items if you don't bring it back on time.
Yes, 50 cents a day.
Yes, because we want to keep that stuff circulating in the collection. We have very limited amounts of it. The radon detector is wild too. Like that just is.
That's such an Iowa library thing.
Yes, it really is.
I didn't even know that radon was an Iowa thing until I bought a house a couple years ago, and my realtor's like, "Of course you're going to want to test for radon." I was like, "What? What do you mean?"
What does that mean?
So I'm really thrilled with how those things have taken off. If you asked me to predict what was going to be the most popular, I would not have predicted those though.
I don't think I would have either. I would have predicted the outdoor games. At least, you know.
I literally had someone call today and just like run down the list of the outdoor games we have, and it was like checked out. So you can tell it's very seasonal because they were all checked out. Poor woman. She just wanted a ring toss.
Well, and here's the other thing. If you want something, place holds, because once the hold list gets long enough, we buy another one. So the more people place holds, the faster you're going to get it, kind of.
For the most part. Yeah.
Seems counterintuitive.
It's true, though. It's true. Because that's a great way to just figure out what people want, what they need by looking at what has the longest hold list.
This is also true for books, by the way. This is not just true for library
It's
things.
true for everything.
Yes.
Put
yourself on hold.
The more people want it. I would also encourage you to use the Notify Me tag on Libby as well.
I do that.
Because the more people...
How to make the technical services team hate you.
Just kidding. But not really.
Carrie is the nicest human being in the whole wide world, and I think she'd come find you.
Okay, sorry, Carrie. I hope she doesn't listen to the podcast. Okay, digress.
Focus up.
Digress. So, let's see. Library Things. What are you most excited about in the Library of Things?
I really love all the kitchen stuff. A lot of the stuff we picked up was either because, on the kitchen side of things, was either because I had experience with it and I liked it, and I thought other people would enjoy it too, or because I wanted to try it. So, for example, I didn't want to spend $100 on a sous vide circulator before I tried one, so we got one for the Library of Things.
I love it.
I tell this story a lot. Growing up, my parents were always looking for different ways to entertain my sisters and I. And so they'd buy something, and we'd use it like 2 or 3 times, and then it would go in the basement forever. And that's how I got my ice cream maker. We used it 3 times at most, I think just 2. And then my parents realized this is not entertaining the kids anymore, and it's a lot of work for ice cream we could buy at the store for much less money. And so it stayed in the basement until my mom shoved it at me when I moved into my apartment before I moved into my house more than a few years ago. Wow, time is...
Yeah, what is time, really?
But I kind of thought of that, like, we want to fulfill people's needs, but also having fun and entertaining your family, those are both needs too. But do you really want to spend $70 on an ice cream maker you're going to use twice?
No.
No, you don't. You should check it out from the library instead.
I'm personally really jazzed about the crafting items and the Library of Things. Specifically, I love all these things that are in here. We can talk a little bit about the items, but that there is going to be a Square reader if you want to take payment at a craft fair for things you sell. And I think that is, as someone who has been a vendor at vintage and crafts fairs many times, those things are a pain in the butt. And if you could just check one out, chef's kiss. I love it.
Yes, I'm hoping that sees some use. I'm pretty sure I saw it come in.
I love that.
So it should be available soon if it's not already.
Also, my brain was not working, and you said Square reader, and I was like, is she just calling an e-reader?
Excuse me. A Square reader is like reads credit cards through your phone, basically. So you can take money. You have to set up an account, but so you can basically take a credit card from anyone.
That makes way more sense.
I love paying by Square at craft fairs, and I wish more vendors had it. It's so much more convenient than Venmo. Or worse, cash.
Yeah. Ooh.
I never have cash.
The millennials have spoken.
Truly. I mean,
If you want me to buy your $50 ceramics piece, you really need to take cards somehow.
you really do.
Pull out your checkbook, ladies.
A sewing machine too? Is that on its way, or is it here?
We have 2 sewing
Okay.
machines, and they're already here. Plus, we have an embroidery machine in Tech Central for use in the Central Library.
Sewing is one of my, I love to sew and craft and do things like that. So the accessibility with that one is just like, I know we have one here too, but like, I just think it's such a great, I love all the craft stuff. It's just, I'm just going to keep talking about it. They're so great.
We get really kind notes about things you wouldn't even expect. We got one a year ago, I think, from a woman who had checked out her sewing machine, and she'd used it to make a special pillow for her mom who had breast cancer. And it's like, it's you wouldn't think that the sewing machine is touching people's lives in that way.
You wouldn't.
You wouldn't think that so many people are having clean carpets now because of the library.
When you go to your friend's house and you notice their carpet is clean, thank the library.
Yes, they definitely got their carpet cleaner from us. We just know.
We just know.
Can I talk about the parents collection, which I gotta help with, like just a smidgen?
Yes.
A little bit. Oh my gosh. There's a pack and play now. As someone who has to lug around a pack and play whenever we go anywhere, to find out that like you could go to the library, like if you're traveling here to Des Moines, and just check it out because you're visiting grandma and grandpa in Des Moines, and you don't have to lug the pack and play with you. Oh my gosh. Game changer.
Yeah, we have a pack and play, we have a stroller, we have a collapsible wagon. And for this portion of the collection especially, but for the entire collection, please submit your purchase suggestions.
Yes.
We try and guess what you want, but we're just guessing. We don't know. We're as I had to tell a patron yesterday, we're not mind readers. You need to tell us what you want from us with your words. So please submit those purchase suggestions. We do try and buy most of them. I hate to turn down a purchase suggestion. I have, but it's not something I enjoy.
Yeah, I love the collapsible wagon too. Like,
Yes.
you know, for like the arts festival, like, you know, or whatever, just simple things like that. I don't think about these things because I'm not a parent, but I can absolutely see the value in having a parent's collection.
Yeah, that's why I asked Sarah for her input. I was like, what do babies need anyway?
I just went on vacation and had to first drop off my 70-pound dog and then like also take the baby, so there was so much in our car. My poor brother like took his niece's stuff in his car separately. And he did it with love.
What a good uncle.
I was so mean to my brother on the last podcast.
You did read a little. You did read him a little bit. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. You have to make up for it.
I had to make up for it. He's a very good uncle.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that really sticks out for me from the library things. The home repair stuff is pretty big, I feel like.
Yeah.
We're trying to build that part of the collection as well. So if you're handy, please let us know what we should have.
What are we missing?
What are we missing? Do you know how many items there are in the library things, roughly?
You know, that's a good question. I probably should have looked it up.
Yeah, that's okay. It's fine. It's fine if you don't know.
It keeps taking over the workroom.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, all of our Library of Things items, with the exception of board games, are stored in our librarian workroom. And people keep getting mad at me because I keep being like, I need more space though. What can we move? What can we take downstairs?
And she nicely, when she says people, she means me.
not just you. I've had to talk to Carla and Kat about the books by the phone station.
It is hard too. That is a challenge with the Library of Things. Like, how do you, when they're so large and big, like we can't, where do we put them on the floor? Obviously we don't, with the exception of board games. Because there's just, it's kind of a logistical nightmare at first, but I think we've done a pretty good job of making it work.
Well, and the other thing,
says the girl who doesn't work here in the Central Librarian workroom.
The other trick about the Library of Things, and maybe I shouldn't say this to the public, but I'm going to anyway.
We can always cut it.
Not everything in the Library of Things has an RFID tag, which is why we're so strict about checking it out before we give it to you.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if we give it to you and you wander around and then you forget to check it out, there's nothing to tell either of us, you or us, that you forgot. And then it just disappears. And hopefully you remember to bring it back, but maybe it gets lost in your basement. So it's a real challenge to even think about putting them out on the floor in anything but like dummy DVD cases like we've done for board games at Central. because we just don't have any way to know when they're going through the gates a lot of the time.
That's a valid point. Because some of that stuff is not cheap either.
No. Carrie actually just sent me a list of things that have gone to loss from the Library of Things, and
it's not short.
It's pretty short, but it's not cheap.
Yeah. It's like classic. You just got back from ALA, correct?
Yes,
and that was in San Diego this year, correct?
It was beautiful San Diego.
All I'm gonna say is unfair. I went to Chicago last year. Why didn't I get to go to San Diego? No, I'm kidding.
I do want to point out ALA actually paid for most of my trip, which is the only reason I got to go.
I was gonna have you talk about that a little bit. And why were you at ALA?
And just before, ALA is the American Library Association Conference.
Thank you. So happens when 3 librarians are talking.
And it was in San Diego this year.
Yeah.
Yes. So, was it last summer or the summer before last? Emily Drabinski, who is the outgoing president of ALA, or technically I think is now the former president of ALA?
Yes, I think so.
Not entirely certain how that works. Did a tour of American libraries. And she stopped at several libraries in Iowa. And one of the ones she stopped at was Central. And so our deputy director took her on a tour, and he stopped in the workroom to show her the Library of Things. And I, on the other side of the workroom, heard him talking about the Library of Things. And I popped up and was like, hey, that's my collection. And I inserted myself into the conversation like you do.
Yeah. It's your collection.
It's my collection. So I was like, let's talk to her about it. And so I showed her what was there, but I also made a point to talk about the things that weren't there, which included the carpet cleaner. And she was so moved by that story. She was saying she remembered how her mom used to save up and have to wait to buy or to rent one from the grocery store growing up, so she could clean her carpets once a year. She was so moved by the fact that we had one patrons could check out for free that when she was on the New York Times podcast, she mentioned it, and she mentioned us by name, which I thought was going to be the coolest point in my career. And then a couple months ago, she called and invited me to come to ALA to speak on her panel about cool things that librarians across the country are doing. And so I was there to talk about the Library of Things, and the other people on this panel were talking about like combating food insecurity in their community, and providing a way for people to go to traffic court without being able to drive to traffic court, because traffic court ruins lives.
Yeah.
And fighting for school librarians in New York public schools. And I'm here talking about our ice cream maker and our carpet cleaner.
They are very
Which
important.
is also very valid.
Yes.
Like I say a lot with regards to the Library of Things, fun is a need too.
Absolutely.
And so are clean carpets, and so is knowing how much cancer-causing gas is in your house.
Yes.
That is important. I mean, that is important.
We laugh, but it's very important. As someone who had to put like a mitigation system in their new house, it's very important.
As someone who still intends to, yes, very important. But yeah, and so she offered to pay for my flight out and my conference registration, which I assume they more waived than paid for. And then also my hotel for 2 nights. And then the library graciously paid for a 3rd night so I could actually go to 2 full days of conference stuff, the 1 day, half of which was taken up by the panel.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you have any other, like, were there any fun highlights that happened for you that were not the panel at ALA?
Yeah.
Did you meet any, I feel like meeting authors is a big one.
Yes, that's a big one. I came home with about 65 pounds worth of swag.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, I flew Southwest, so I was able to... This is not an advertisement for Southwest, but it was very convenient to be able to check 2 bags at no additional cost.
Yes.
Because I did that, and they were both very full. I got to meet Ngozi Ukazu, which was really exciting for me because I love Check Please. I've been on the fence about Barda because I'm not really into superheroes, but also she's amazing. Ngozi, I assume Barda's also amazing because she was very enthusiastic about Barda. And I've been saving Bunt for a rainy day.
Yeah.
It's like that's for when I really need to pick me up. And so I was like near the front of the line because I got in line early. I was like, I cannot miss this. And she was telling people at the front of the line, like, hey, if you stop by my booth afterwards, I'll do a little drawing in your book for you.
Oh.
So I did that, obviously.
That is so
obviously.
Cool. Obviously.
I also went to a Queer Joy Comics panel, which was super fun. They had 4 different comic artists and graphic novelists talking about what it's like to write characters who don't always see a lot of joy in stories with joy. I mean, I think we all know the fridged characters tend to be women and people who aren't straight. So this was very much the opposite of that. And also
awesome.
they talked a lot of shit about Marvel Pride. Apparently, DC Pride is superior.
Oh.
I never would have guessed.
Who would have guessed, actually?
But literally, all of them were in agreement on this, which
Okay.
was the most interesting thing on the panel to me. I was like, you wouldn't think they'd be that different.
Yeah.
But apparently, just DC is much better at writing diversity. So, if you're looking to get into comics, I'm not particularly, but if you are, maybe start with DC.
That sounds fun. ALA is a trip. It's fun. It's a lot. That is where my program, Memory Cafe, came out of, was going to ALA and learning about that program and bringing it here. So it's always fun to just like network and meet authors and hang out, and also be in California. But I'll stop saying how jealous I am that you were in California and I was in Illinois.
I will say I was so exhausted I barely got the chance to enjoy it.
Valid.
Also, for some reason, the air conditioning in every San Diego building is terrible. Maybe it's because it was unseasonably hot at like low 80s. As the high.
That's just California.
It's like the convention center should have better air conditioning than this.
We've talked a lot about the Library of Things and like the items, the things that help in your home, your ice cream maker, things like that. We haven't talked about the board games, really. We've mentioned it going. Do you want to talk a little bit about the board game collection? Because that is also part of Library of Things, correct?
Yes. Well, kind of. It's more of an offshoot.
Adjacent, yes.
But I still manage it.
Yes.
And by manage it, I mean people ask for things, and if I can find them, I buy them.
Love it.
And of course, we have several librarians who are really into board games, so they've been very helpful in building the collection. It kind of started as tech services pulled a couple of us into a meeting and was like, hey, we have a few $100s left to spend. It's coming up on the end of the year, and we'd like to start a board game collection, and we think it fit with the Library of Things. So we started out with I think we bought 20 or 30 board games, and then Kat, who is one of our librarians at Central, donated quite a few more. Whenever she weeds her board game collection, which is extensive, she gives us first pick, which is very kind.
Shout out to Kat.
Yes, Kat's great. And so from there, it's just kind of built. We buy things that people request. Board games are shockingly expensive.
Yes.
A lot of the board games we buy are in the $60 to $100 range, some a little less, some a little more. And I think when you're spending that kind of money, it's really smart to try before you buy.
Agreed.
So check the library catalog if you're thinking of buying something like Wingspan or Hughes and Q's. And if we don't have it, please feel free to submit a purchase suggestion. I feel like I'm hammering on this a lot, but please feel free to submit purchase suggestions for any collection
And you
item.
can submit a purchase suggestion multiple ways. You can do, if you're logged into your account, you can, on the side, there's a little link you can hit for purchase suggestion. There's multiple ways. That's probably the easiest.
Yeah.
I was going to say you can call us, but I'm
like,
sorry, guys. I was like, you can call us at Central, where Central answers all our phone calls. So, but you can call us. You can do that, or you could stop at a desk and we could enter it for you. So there's lots of ways to do it. And these board games are generally, they're not. What age range do the Library of Things board like? Is it?
Yeah. So we've recently started partnering with tech services to introduce a junior part of the Library of Things collection. So you'll see that rolling out. Kids board games will be in backpacks, like the new STEM kit packaging.
I love that.
And they'll be with the STEM kits, I believe.
Love that. That's where we've had them. The few they're always out, but when they are in, they go with our STEM kits at Franklin.
And it's a good thing they're always out, because we really rely on the public to make sure we have enough shelving.
Oh man, if you guys only knew how well the pandemic taught us that. But Franklin specifically, you guys, so much of what we have is not in the building. But generally, like, you could play these board games, like you could have like higher age, school age, like it's not necessarily.
We have board games for all ages. Every board game manufacturers always list the age range that they recommend, and maybe you can go plus or minus a little bit, but they're usually pretty good at figuring out, well, 5-year-olds are going to have a really hard time playing this game. So that's something that is on all of the board games, and if you come to Central to check them out, you'll actually see we have little DVD cases with all of the current board games checked in over by our Hot Titles No Holds, which are also a great collection you should use. And so what you can do is you can browse there. That has the title of the board game, the summary of how to play, how long it's going to take. I was informed that is something board game players really look for.
Interesting. Makes sense.
Yes,
it makes sense. But I never would have thought of that either.
And of course, the recommended age range. And so when you find whatever you want, you just take the DVD case and you swap it at the desk, and then we check out the board game and give it to you.
Love that. If you were not at Central, you can, there at the top of our catalog, there is a tag to hit. That says Library of Things. I think there's board game tag too.
Yes,
they're separate. So there's a Library of Things where you can browse everything in the Library of Things, and then there's a board games where you can online browse everything that we have if you can't specifically make it to Central. And we have our van that goes around 5 days a week and moves all of our books and items and carpet cleaners around.
And ruins the day Kathleen was born as he's driving.
If not me, it would have been someone else.
True.
This was happening regardless. I did come up with the idea for the carpet cleaners.
Just real quick, I feel like we've covered almost everything here with Library Things, but do you want to talk about the Easter Seals partnership? Because that was, I think, incredible too.
Yes, I think it was about a year ago now. Someone from Easter Seals reached out to us wondering how we could partner with them to get the word out about their assistive technology. They lend assistive technology. We have a small collection of things, which I'll get to in a minute, but they have way, way, way more. And they just weren't really sure how to get the word out to people other than what they were doing already. They saw that we had a Library of Things, and they thought, well, maybe we can work together. And I thought, like, oh, they want us to be like a pickup drop-off spot. That would be really cool. But it ended up they actually just gave us like a dozen and a half things as a starter, and then if they check out well enough, we'll expand the collection and get more things. So some of the stuff we have, if you may have seen us on KCCI or Channel 13, we have things like low vision playing cards that are also high contrast. We have a playing card holder for someone who doesn't have the manual dexterity to hold cards in their hands, a pen reader, Braille Monopoly, which is just a regular Monopoly board with a Braille overlay that's clear, so everyone can play whether or not you can read Braille. A book stand with a magnifier, things along those lines that are kind of related to our collections already. And these things, you don't have to have any kind of diagnosed disability to check them out. You can think, that might help with my life, or you can just think, well, I'm kind of curious, I wonder what that is. I was talking with someone from Easter Seals, and she was telling me it takes on average 7 tries for someone to find the right assistive technology. Wow. And that adds up really quickly. Yeah. And that's why they exist. I had no idea Easter Seals loaned anything. They'll also loan durable medical equipment, so you can contact them about that too. We just don't do that here for obvious reasons. I thought they just ran the camp, though. I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea. And I just love, A, that partnership, but B, how the Library of Things has so many different communities that we're serving. Like, yes. It's not just like there's younger people, there's people who have disabilities, there's just all these different people who love to sew, there's all these different, it's not just the same like 5 items. I think it's really incredible. The range of the collection I think is incredible.
Yeah, we have at least 100 board games and probably 100, well, frankly, we probably have 200 board games, if we're being honest. At least 100 Library of Things items if we're including the multiple copies. And it's only growing and slowly taking over the workroom. Someone's going to have to give up their desk. It's not going to be me.
Where's Library Things go next? Who knows?
Maybe I'll just live in this podcast room and you can just have my desk.
I mean, the fight of every library, even Central, which is not small, it is difficult to find where to put things. We run out of space very quickly. Yes. I think that is all.
Yeah, do you have anything
else you want to talk about that I missed or?
Not Library of Things related, but let's give the makerspace some love. Please come use Tech Central.
Tech Central.
We have a laser engraver, which you do have to take a class first to use, but it's really cool and it's really fun.
It's really cool.
And it was recently down for 2 months, and all of our regular users were very upset about it. Not with us, thankfully. Just in general. Yeah. We recently got a resin 3D printer, which is super cool. That is another one where you have to take a class first. But Dennis is super enthusiastic about it, and he does a great job teaching that class, and so does Laura. So if you take the class, it'll be one of them teaching you. And then we also have things that don't require a class, like our Adobe station, our media conversion station, which can do audio cassettes, VHS tapes, and mini DV tapes. We have a Cricut maker. We got a large format Cricut recently, which is going to be available for the public very soon, and we're very excited about it.
I just bought poster board for it. I'm so excited. We're going to make dinosaurs.
Staff are very, very excited about it because it's going to make decorating Central Library much easier.
All the other shelving space is full of my crafts. It's sorry.
Yes. And the previously mentioned embroidery machine and the button maker. And I think that covers most of it.
Sublimation printer?
Oh, yes, we have a sublimation printer. Man, I pushed so hard for that. I don't know how I forgot it.
That's okay. I mean, we've talked about a lot of things
we
here.
got to name a lot of things.
Yeah, sublimation printer and heat press. Also very cool. Great for holiday gifts. You can put someone's face on something and then give it to them. Highly recommend.
And yeah, most of Tech Central, you do have to make appointments to use. Am I correct, right?
Yes, you can walk in. I don't recommend coming down with the intent of walking in because then if it's booked, you've come to the Central Library for nothing. There's plenty of stuff to do here.
Yes.
You're not getting what you came for.
Yes. And you can do that online.
Yes, you can do it online for everything except the Glowforge and the Resin 3D printer.
Because you have to do the class.
We have to verify that you took the class.
Okay. And then how do you take the class? Is it a sign up online too?
Yeah, you can sign up online in our program calendar, or you can give us a call or email us, and we will get you signed up for whenever works for you.
Love it. Love it.
Yay.
Tech Central is so cool, and it is because it's here and not anywhere else. I tend to forget that it exists. And when I'm reminded of it, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
I know at one point there was a vision, and I think this was mostly a pie in the sky thing, for all the branches to have maker spaces.
Yes, I'm sure.
And I think the branches put the kibosh on that because no one has enough space.
We don't got space.
No.
Oof, yeah.
No.
Seriously.
But you can always come to Central.
Yes.
Where we still don't have enough space. We have enough space for our maker space.
It's a great tagline.
Yeah,
We have space for our maker space. Sorry.
Central Library. Okay, I think that is about it.
Are we gonna do the book bulletin?
Of course we are. Yeah. Okay, so what do we got to talk? Okay, I feel like the main thing I'm going to start off because I mentioned it earlier is the New York Times did put out a list of the best books of the 21st century.
What hubris.
And the discourse has been discoursing. I do think that the main complaints are that there are authors who have multiple books on there, and that is not fair. There's some pretty glowing misses. I think, let's see what else. Oh, James Patterson and Stephen King both voted for themselves. It was like a panel of like editors, authors, it was critics. It was a bunch of people who, whatever, came together to decide these books.
Was it librarians? Were librarians on this list?
I do not believe so.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Could be wrong. But
I don't have thoughts and feelings about that at all.
Thinking about the New York Public Library.
Yeah.
Right? And I think maybe this was going to happen all along, but there is now a reader's choice list that is available. So they did poll people and ask the public what their best books are. And while there is overlap, it is definitely more reflective of, I think, what people love and what people read. Not to diss on, like George Saunders, who has like 3 books, like great writer.
Please diss
great
on
writer.
George Saunders.
But like
Didn't finish that book.
3 books on the list? I don't know.
I didn't finish Lincoln in the Bardo, so he did not make my list.
His short stories are way better.
That's what I've heard. I need to give him another chance.
But anyways, and it's funny, like I said, I was like rereading one of the books in the middle of it. So I was like listening to all these people talk about whether My Brilliant Friend deserved to be number 1 or if it didn't. It was on the Reader's Choice top 10 too. Okay. So I do feel like it had its place in the top. But I feel like that has been that's been a lot of people talking.
I will say I felt a lot better when I heard you guys talking about there being controversy around it because I don't want to name numbers, but my number was embarrassingly low.
Mine too.
Mine too. And some of that's because I read nonfiction and the list was very heavily literary fiction, which I do not really read.
I mean, and
there was a severe lack of genre, which is rude. As someone who loves lit fic, that's rude.
And like our longtime listeners are going to know that like my number is real low because I read mostly genre.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, I don't read any of these.
We did do, library staff did put together their own top 10 ballads.
Yes.
A few of us on the book chat team, and you can definitely check those out on our Instagram, library's Instagram. A couple posts back for sure, but it is on there, which was kind of fun to do. I definitely made my own top 10. It was like, it was interesting.
I remember telling Kelly, who's in marketing, when she asked, I was like, that's going to be really hard. And then I cranked it out in 20 minutes. I was like, this is what I'm doing today.
We're doing a display at Franklin where we're going to put our staff's choices. And I did, Katie in tech services, who we have had on the podcast, was working at Franklin yesterday. I was like, hey, Katie, want to make me a ballot? And so I'm grateful that she made two. So we've all kind of made our own choices. And you know what? It is so fun to look at what other people choose. Where your not only taste lie, but what you think is valuable. Yes. I loved it.
I also enjoyed the overlap I wasn't expecting among coworkers and stuff like that as well. So
super interesting.
So at the very least, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
doing it after the New York Times
and then talking shit about the list.
Yeah,
well, nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
You put this down, Jess, as a note, but I'm going to talk about it. Is the Florida Department of Ed. So the Florida Department of Education released a list of recommended reading for students with a theme of American pride.
Can't even keep a straight face.
But it included British novelist Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice on it. So
deeply patriotic.
Deeply patriotic. That Jane. So not a whole lot more to tell you about that.
But it's just funny.
We really wanted to bring that up.
This is really funny.
Great book. Doesn't quite fit the theme.
No. Let's see. Oh, this one I think is, I just happened to read an article about this, but Curtis Sittenfeld, who wrote romantic comedy prep, I can't think of anything else right now, but quite a few books, has challenged ChatGPT to see which story is better. There's 5 tropes that were voted on in the New York Times, and so they haven't, I don't think you can see what they are, but they've been voted on. Voting's closed, and then they're going to put those into ChatGPT, and then Curtis is going to also write a story with those, same ideas and see which one's better. Gee, I wonder.
Yeah.
Which one will be?
Kathleen, do you have thoughts and feelings about AI?
Everyone who works with me knows that I have very strong negative feelings about AI. And AI is actually, to me, shockingly divisive among librarians. Because some librarians really, really love it. And others like me think that it's unethical in a number of ways, and also you shouldn't outsource your plagiarism. If you're going to plagiarize, you should just do it. If you're going to plagiarize, at least put in the effort to plagiarize.
Yeah, it is. It's not my fave either. No. I do feel I feel unethical is a really great word to use, in my opinion. While I can see it's using for good, I can see there are ways that you can use AI for good, but mostly for evil. It's mostly used for evil. I'm sorry.
My brother-in-law works for Google, and he uses AI to code, and that makes total sense to me.
Yes,
because it's just a giant algorithm.
Yes.
Of course the algorithm can produce code when you tell it what you want it to do.
It can't currently make schedules for Central, so that's really what I need it to do, and it doesn't, so I'm not pro AI.
I wouldn't want it to make my schedule.
I don't trust it.
But no.
If I would not have to count every desk.
The counting. Yeah.
The counting.
Could you not put it in and have it be please tell me how many tea boxes are in whatever
I have yet to be able, it just spits me out more Excel, and I was like, that's not what I want.
Because I will admit,
maybe I'm not asking the right questions.
It does have its strength in compiling data.
Yes, it does.
I think that is a relatively ethical use for it if you put aside the environmental issues.
Yeah. But writing a book is what authors do, not computers, is what I'm going to say about that. So I am very curious to see how this plays out. We will update. I will try to remember and see what happens. Again, we probably know what's going to happen, but I'll keep it on lock. So
yeah, I will definitely be looking this up because I'm very intrigued now.
Yeah. Real millennial coded announcement we have here for you as a group of millennials. There's a book series by Scott Westerfield, the first one being called The Uglies. Is the series have a name?
I think it's called just...
Is it just called The Uglies?
I think so.
Came out in the early 2000s?
Early 2000s.
Like, so way back in the day.
2, I think.
Yeah. Super popular, dystopian, has stayed relatively popular. Was optioned for TV in 2006. And now, in the year of our Lord 2024, it finally has a release date, which is September 13th.
Oh, soon.
Soon. I think that's why people are very excited.
So it's like releasing. Like they filmed it. Yes. It's ready to go.
It's done.
Oh, in my head, I was like, did they film it in 2006? Which is not how that works.
That would be hilarious.
Just like very funny.
Now, like in their late 30s, early 40s.
But for the few people who loved that series, get excited. I think I didn't write it down, but I feel like it's Netflix. But unfortunately, I did not write it down where it's being released.
But I feel like optioning teen series is like very popular for Netflix, so I feel like that's a fair
guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of adaptations,
it is Netflix.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about Fourth Wing. Got a showrunner for their adaptation, and she created Anne with an E. And she wrote for Breaking Bad, and her name is Moira Walley-Beckett. So I'm very excited about that, like, duality between, like, Anne with an E and wrote for Breaking Bad. I was like, perfect choice.
Yeah, I mean, I as a hardcore Anne Shirley lover, I really liked Anne with an E. I thought it was a delightful little show. So it's very interesting to think of that in the context of Fourth Wing, but I'm excited. Like, I'm interested. That's an Amazon Studio one, I think. Yeah, I know that's an Amazon Studio one.
It's going to be on Prime.
But as all things that are optioned, who knows?
Who knows? I mean, before we started this podcast, ACOTAR, I think that adaptation might be dead in the water because of the separation of their showrunner with Hulu, who originally optioned it.
Which is so wild. Like, one of the most popular books, they can't make a show about it. I mean, they make a show about literally everything else. So.
And like dragons are real in right now, so you got to get in while. Like, these are fairies, I guess. So Fourth Wing would be dragons, but maybe the
fairies are still in. They're in. It's fairies and dragons.
I feel like ever since Game of Thrones ended, there's been a real effort to make fantasy TV work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it working?
I don't know.
Great question. But they're trying. They're trying really hard because they saw how many piles of money Game of Thrones made HBO, and everyone's trying to replicate it.
I watched My Lady Jane, which was on...
I'm so curious about that. It was
so good.
You've read the book?
I read the book.
Okay.
It's not one for one, which I think is fine. I am a true believer that, like, their TV or movies and books are two different mediums, and we need to treat them as two different mediums when we tell stories. But it was campy. It was fun.
I'm in. You say campy, I'm there.
Yes.
You say that word, I'm like, I'm in. I'm watching it.
Yeah. So I know I enjoyed myself thoroughly watching that.
Yeah. I actually love when adaptations make smart changes from the books because there's so much detail in the book that you can't put into a movie or a TV show. So like one of my favorite childhood series, His Dark Materials, made some very big changes in their first season. And I think it really improved the show a lot. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. I also watched it.
Station 11. Can we say? Yeah, I mean, like, if you recall, Sarah and I are going to talk about how much we love Station 11.
Talking about Station 11.
But My Lady Jane is, I think, on a couple people's lists for the best books of, like, I know people loved it, that book, and I've never read it, and it's on my list.
I would say I'm not in the like loved it book, but I enjoyed it very much. But I also know people who like loved it, which is why I picked it up in the first place.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I love it. I think that's all for us today. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, we love to have a guest on the podcast. You guys get to listen to someone else besides us.
And it's a great time for me because I don't have to be doing work right now.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.
Bye.